Guys, John from Mongo Fishing. Today I want to talk to you guys about something that was requested by several of you, and that is how I do the Carolina rig. Carolina rig is a really basic technique that allows you to cover a bunch of water, you know, not really fast, but like if you have like an expansive grass flat or a long point or something like that and you're trying to locate fish to see if they're even on there, it's a good way to cover that water and find some fish. And it's super simple. It's some weights, some swivels, some line, and some hooks, and your soft plastic. Sort of the same ingredients as a Texas rig, with the exception of one or two extra steps. So we'll get into the basic rig, and then we'll get into the way I rig it, which is most definitely not required. The basic rig is all you need. I basically just overcomplicate things, but I think it works better for me. And ultimately, when it comes to bass fishing, confidence is key. If you don't have confidence in a technique, you're gonna have a hard time catching fish. And for me, I just feel more confident rigging the Carolina rig the way that I like to rig it versus the traditional rig. And again, my version is way more complicated and certainly not necessary. So I'll show you the OG original style, basically, of rigging the Carolina rig. Show you my style, and then we'll talk about, you know, how to fish it. I've already discussed where to fish it. Like I said, grass flats, long rocky points, whatever. But anyway, let's get into it. So basically, all you really need, and this is not a plug for the Monster Bass bag, but I will plug the Monster Bass bag because this month was Carolina rigging, and for the next, well, until the end of April, if you use my code that's down in the description, if you use my little link that's down in the description, along with promo code SAVE15, then you can get $15 off of your first box, which basically gets you the April, or not box, bag, basically gets you the April bag for $20. You can't beat that. So I'll show you how to rig it using the stuff, the Carolina rig kit that came in the April 2022 bag. And then I'll show you, you know, like I said, how it's originally done, and then how I do it, which is slightly different. So let's go ahead and cut one off real quick, because I have one rigged up the way I do it. So we'll cut it off just so I can show you everything. Okay, so first off, you're gonna have your rod and reel. I typically like to use whatever reel speed you like. You know, that's up to you. But I like to use, you know, like 15 to 20 pound fluoro as my main line. You can use braid. You do not want to use mono. So my main line, again, 15 to 20 pound fluoro. The traditional way of doing it, we'll use the Monster Bass kit. You're going to get yourself an appropriately sized weight, which this has tungsten in it, which you always want to use tungsten when you can. If you don't have tungsten, lead works perfectly fine. It worked for years and years and years. But tungsten is way more sensitive. So you slide your weight onto your line. Then you want a bead. This kit came with 2 weights, 2 beads, 4 swivels, 4 little brass clackers. So get yourself a bead and slide that on next. Now what this does is the bead is going to protect your swivel, protect the knot. You're going to tie on whatever knot you like to use. We'll just do a quick Palomar onto your swivel. So far we slid up a weight and a bead up our line, and now we're tying a swivel on, which is just a barrel swivel. Always get your line wet when you're tying with fluoro. Always, always, always. Okay. And then cut off my little tag end. So right now, all I've done is that. I have my weight, I have a bead, I have a barrel swivel. To the end of the barrel swivel, you're going to tie another piece of fluoro. This piece of fluoro is going to be a smaller diameter line. So this, for example, is like 12 pound, and to whatever size hook you want. 3/0, 4/0, 5/0, EWG, worm hook, whatever. That's all going to depend on whatever style hook you like to throw and whatever trailer you are using, whatever soft plastic you are using. But you want to use, 15 inches to 2 feet of line. Some people like to go just ridiculous lengths. Me personally, I don't. 15 inches to 2 feet. And you tie that onto the other end of your swivel. So, why would I have, in this case, 17-pound test on one side and like 10 or 12 on the other? Well, that's simple. I want the tungsten's expensive, right? If this thing gets hung up and gets stuck, if the hook gets stuck in a rock or whatever, then I want my soft plastic to break off when I'm trying to get it unsnagged versus me losing all the tungsten. Tungsten is expensive. So there you have it. Super simple. There's your hook. And about 2 feet away, here is my little bead that protects my knot and my my piece of tungsten. In this case, a 1/2 ounce. So if you listen, you hear it. So as you're, as you're working it, this little bead can clack off that weight. There you go. Super simple. That is the OG style of rigging this. Now we're going to do my style of rigging it. This all stays the same. The hook, the lighter line, that all stays the same. What changes is the weight setup. So let's cut this off and set it off to the side. All right, so what I like to do, what makes this different, is I like to use 2 pieces of tungsten and a piece of brass. And the reason for that, so in this case, yeah, I've got a 1/2 ounce and a 1/4 ounce. So we're just going to have to, imagine that I need 3/4 ounce to work this area. In all honesty, if a 1/2 ounce would work, I'd probably just use 2 1/4 ounce pieces versus 1 1/2 ounce piece. So we're going to slide on our 1/2 ounce piece. Whichever one's in front doesn't really matter. Typically, if I have a bullet shaped, that's what goes in front. And then the barrel style would be my backup. But in this case, we'll do this 1/2 in front. And then we're going to take a little piece of brass and slide that on. And then we're going to put our second piece of tungsten. And then we're going to put our bead, which I don't know where my bead went. There's my bead. And you can play with this. So now we have multiple things that can hit off each other and clack, and it can make a lot more noise. So maybe you want to rig it like this. Sometimes I rig it where I go tungsten, then bead, then tungsten, then brass. Ultimately, the moral of the story is it's never tungsten against your knot. It's either brass against your knot or it's bead against your knot, but it's never tungsten against the knot. Like I said, it's overly complicated. It's not necessary, but that's how I rig mine. I actually, for most of mine, have a slightly different piece of brass And this brass actually is cupped so it fits over my swivel perfect. It's, again, not necessary. However, that's how I like to rig it. And everything back to the same way. You know, attach your swivel, and then the other end of your swivel is attached to your leader line. Okay. So now we are all rigged up the way I like to do it. Which again, overly complicated, way too many pieces, not necessary. But in my opinion, it just works better. It makes more noise. It's clacking off rocks a little more. I just think it's a better technique or a better way to rig it. All right, so for trailers, tubes, brush hogs, worms, whatever soft plastic you prefer. I absolutely love a baby brush hog, especially for smallmouth. And you just Texas rig it the way you would any other soft plastic. And then I like to Texpose the hook just a little bit. Again, I'm using, I think this is 10-pound fluoro for my leader. I keep a little container of leader material in here, but I think that's 10-pound fluoro. And there you have it. There's your weight. Right here. It's probably 15 or 18 inches of line. There's my hook, Texposed. And then I'll typically dip the tail in chartreuse if I'm fishing for smallmouth. I just think that they like the chartreuse a little better. And then as for fishing, it's super simple. You cast it out, you let it sink all the way to the bottom, which I have not fished this area. I don't know if this is holding any fish or not. But you cast it out, let it sink all the way to the bottom. Good Lord, how deep is it right here? Okay. And then what a lot of guys like to do is they sweep the rod slowly, and you're kind of counting rocks basically. You can feel that tungsten hitting the rocks. You sweep it, let it sit for a second, and then gather your slack. Like reel back down to it. And then sweep it. I mean, it's super simple. It's slow, yeah, but you can cover a whole flat with a couple casts. Now, that's the way you're supposed to do it. One thing I typically do is instead of sweeping, stopping, and catching back up again, I'll get to where it feels comfortable, and I'll just slowly reel. Just ever so slowly. Again, the key is to keep my bait in contact with the bottom. There's no need for me to stop it and go back and sweep and go back. If I can just slowly keep reeling. Kind of in a bad position for doing this and demonstrating, but you guys know how to cast out and reel. You're smart enough to do that. If you're watching this channel, you've been fishing before, I'm sure. So let it sink to the bottom. Again, just kind of sweep it to where it feels comfortable for me, where I can still get a good hook set, and I'm just slowly reeling. And when they get it, you'll know it. You'll feel them tugging, against you, and you can either sweep, swing your hook from here, or you can kind of reel down and then set the hook. But you got to keep in mind your drag needs to be set appropriately for whatever your smaller line size is. So don't have this thing gorilla grip down for 65-pound braid if that's what you're throwing, and you only got a 10-pound leader, because you'll lose fish all day long doing that. You'll snap them off on the hook set, you'll lose them when they pull, whatever. So set your drag appropriate for whatever size line you have down there. But that's that, guys. I'm not going to sit here and continue to fish it, because honestly, I have other techniques I need to be working on. But because you guys had asked, there it is. That's how I Carolina rig. Again, certainly not necessary. It's a little more overcomplicated the way I do it, but it is what it is. For the rod, a worm and jig rod. This is a Denali Covert 7.2 medium heavy worm and jig rod. This is the same rod that I throw my swim jigs on, same rod that I throw my worms on. Because basically, if you think about it, it's not much different than Texas rigging. You're just using a worm that's God, man, these geese are crazy. You're just using a worm that's separated from the weight by, you know, a couple feet. But that's it, guys. Hopefully you guys learned something. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, drop a comment, feel free to ask any questions. I apologize for these geese. They're losing their mind. Maybe there's a nest over there. I don't know. I haven't been attacked yet, but I got a feeling it's going to happen pretty soon. So I'm going to get out of here. Again, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button right down there along with the bell notification button so you get notified every single time I put out another video. As always, get out on the water, be safe, and go stick some lips.